Good day, YouTube. I'm Daniel Claremont. I'm the Acadian therapist. I hope that you're doing well. This week we're going to be talking about the philosophy of harm reduction. Now, this one might be a bit more of an advanced episode, and also it might bring up some more intense emotions in some people. Some of this stuff may challenge some beliefs or ideas that maybe you've carried all your life, maybe you've been handed down generations. And so my intention is never to replace anyone's values or anyone's ideas. It is just to give some different concepts to play with, maybe some different strategies to try to help improve the quality of life. So, as always, you can switch off the video, maybe come back another week. You are always welcome here. If you have some thoughts, you can put it in the comments. You can send me a message. I'd love to have some discussion about these things. And also, if you're having very intense emotional reactions to this, pretty much anything else, don't forget that I have a whole playlist on mental health essentials and grounding and relaxation. So there are some other options out there to help manage those emotional reactions, and then maybe come back, maybe not. Maybe you decide, it's just not for me. That's totally fine. But I hope that you'll be able to stick with me because I think this is a very interesting concept and has the potential to alleviate a lot of suffering for a lot of folks. Originally, this was developed for addictions, but I think it applies to a whole wide variety of different kinds of behaviors that we might want to change. And also, if you want to support this comment, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share. All of those things are helpful for letting YouTube know that the algorithm should promote this content, so that's always very much appreciated. And as well, your feedback is important to us. So anything that you want me to talk about, or anything if you have a different interpretation on, let me know. In fact, I'm already working on another video that's going to be an update to some earlier content just based on feedback. So I certainly do pay attention to that stuff, and it is your voice definitely matters. So hope to hear from you soon. Okay, so to understand harm reduction, first we have to understand its opposite. So what I would say the opposite of harm reduction is abstinence, which is basically don't do it. Don't do the behavior. Just stop doing it. Just knock it off. So abstinence has a very long history. And in fact, I've traced it back to the temperance movement, which was an international movement back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. In Canada, it goes back to the Temperance Act of 1878, I believe it is. And if you want some context, not only was I a much younger man back then, but also this was 34 years before the Titanic had its incident. So this goes back quite a long time, and it was this international movement that was relating to alcohol use. And so it very much linked the idea of alcohol use with wickedness and sin. And it was fundamentally evil. And this was the source of evils in society, was just alcohol. If we could get rid of it, then all the evils of society would go away. And so this led to a lot of prohibition. This led to quite a lot of movements to try to ban alcohol sales. I think we know how that panned out. It was very unpopular, and so alcohol came roaring back. However, this did fuel the creation of, I don't quite know off the top of my head if this is exactly how far back Alcoholics Anonymous goes, but if you think about some of the aspects of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a lot of religious components to it. There's the element of confession, the admitting that you have a problem, the confession aspect, and atoning to those that you have wronged. And of course, the idea that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. You can never touch another drop of alcohol. And so the abstinence, this is where the abstinence notion of just absolutely stop it and never start again. Let me pause for a moment and just say, so if you are a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I do believe that this has saved so many lives. It has done an awful lot of good. And so if you are a believer in this, if this is the experience that you have had, that you cannot have even one drink because it will lead to all this other addictive behaviors, please don't take this video as, yeah, I should go ahead and drink, because certainly not. Never replace something that works. That's a very important message, I think. So this is just an alternative philosophy, so please don't take me as being opposed to any organization that does some good. But it is important to note that some folks have tried Alcoholics Anonymous and they're not able to follow through with it, either because of the religious component or because the strict abstinence model is too harsh, it's too difficult, it's too challenging. And so if you think about it, there is this attachment of sin and negativity with the behavior. Understandable, because these behaviors, in the case of Alcoholics Anonymous, is also Narcotics Anonymous. There's so many. There's Overeaters Anonymous. Basically, there's all of these different addictions that has been linked to this model of just don't do it. So if you think about it, if you do relapse, this is really common to happen, then that means you have sinned. You have committed this evil act, and so this brings shame roaring up. So let's talk about relapse. And we already have, in a way. Back in episode 10, the stages of change, talked a lot about the process of making changes. And interestingly, in that model, the first step is also admitting you have a problem. So it's moving from pre-contemplation to contemplation. So yes, I think I have a problem. And then you come up with a plan. Now with abstinence, the plan is just stop doing it. Attend meetings, but don't do it. Stop doing it. And then continue. So if you're able to do that, that's magnificent, that's wonderful. And then if you can't, according to the old model, you're a sinner. There's something wrong with you. You're a bad person because you're not able to stop. And so that causes you this psychological stress, in addition to possibly the physical stress, especially if it's a physical addiction. A lot of these behaviors are linked to physical addiction, like nicotine, alcohol. So the body gets adjusted to it and requires it. And so suddenly stopping leads to this physical stress as well as the emotional stress. This may also be linked to earlier memories. So if, let's say, when I was young, I would soothe myself with food when I was stressed, here in the present, when I get stressed, I want to relapse because that was an old soothing thing. So avoiding the behavior causes you stress, which triggers doing it again. It's the smoker that quits cold turkey cigarettes, and this causes stress, which leads to more smoking, which leads to hopelessness, and says, well, I guess I can't do this. And so this is part of the challenge of abstinence. It's a very steep climb, and a lot of people fall off, and then they tell this story of shame. I think I'm on the record about shame. So when you shame yourself, you're attacking yourself. And again, when you attack yourself, we talked about this in episode 3. Window of Tolerance talked about this in episode 9, which is understanding your survival brain. So when your body is under attack, you're just not able to make the clearest decisions for yourself. A clear decision like, I should eat the healthy meal instead of the unhealthy meal. Or I should call my sponsor instead of having a drink. So I'm not a big fan of shame, and I'm not a big fan of making things extra challenging. What I am fond of is the model I talked about in episode 19, Tiny Habits, which will fold nicely into harm reduction. Kind of exactly what it sounds like. It is reducing the potential harm that you can have. So the ways of doing this are almost endless, especially if you add in the Tiny Habits model. You want to make the behavior harder to do. Or the way that I describe it is you want to add speed bumps. You want to slow down the process between where you are and where you want to be. So if, let's say, you were trying to quit smoking, I guess let's talk about that example. If you're one that smokes in the truck, lock it in a box. The pack of cigarettes, lock it in like a deposit box or something, pick up something cheap, a Canadian Tire, lock it up, put it in a cupboard that you have to reach a little bit for. Think about all the steps you have to do to access those cigarettes. You have to know that you have the craving, you have to get up, you have to get the key, you have to unlock it, pull out the pack, don't bring the whole pack with you, take out one cigarette, lock the rest back up, and go outside. Another speed bump you can add is before you light the cigarette, you look at it, and you wait a moment. You just wait a moment, and you notice possibly using the dropping anchor exercise that we did. That's the first one in the first video in the Mental Health Essentials video. So you drop anchor and you notice, what are the emotions that I'm feeling? What are the thoughts? I really want the cigarette. I really need the cigarette. Okay, notice the craving. Notice what's going on. Tell yourself, this is because this is a physical addiction. And I'm allowed to have the cigarette. That is very important. This is not meant to manipulate or force yourself not to do it. This is to make you stop and think, get that thinking brain back online a little bit. It makes it easier to make the kind of decision you want to make. So you stare at it. And then you think to yourself, you might look at it, you say, so this is going to feel really good for a minute. It's going to feel, it's going to settle down my nerves. So you mentally walk yourself through it. I'm going to smoke the cigarette. How will it feel? Okay, you savor that. How's it going to feel after? How's it going to feel an hour later? Are you going to feel guilty? Are you going to feel bad? Are you going to feel yucky? Are you going to notice your breath? Are you going to be embarrassed to face your partner when you come back inside? Are your clothes going to smell? So this is not meant to shame, it's just acknowledging, it's noticing the consequences of the behavior and making an intentional decision. Then go ahead and light the cigarette. And that's okay. Enjoy the benefits, notice them, but also notice the negative part. What you're doing is you're adding more data in your brain. You're helping your brain catch up to the consequences of the whole thing. Or you might try smoking half the cigarette, and you're going to wait a little bit. You're going to wait. And you're still allowed to finish the cigarette. That's totally fine. But first, you're going to slow it down. Speed bumps. Gives your thinking brain a chance to catch up. Then if you want another cigarette, you are allowed to, but go back to the box, unlock it, take out one cigarette, and put it back. So this is harm reduction, because if you didn't introduce these steps, you might smoke half a pack. You might not think about it, right? So yes, this involves a little bit of suffering. It does. It means facing a little bit of discomfort, but hopefully not in an overwhelming way that triggers this reaction that says, I can't do that. It's too hard. It's impossible, right? If we wanted to apply harm reduction to overeating, so make sure that you have a good meal before you go grocery shopping so you have less craving. When you're in the grocery store, if you're used to buying 3 bags of chips for the week, just buy one. Read the nutritional information. Maybe try a new kind of chips, something that's maybe a little bit healthier. When you bring it home, make it a little less appealing. So myself, when I buy chips, I keep them with my onions. That's not a very attractive location. So I'll pull the bag out. I will pour a small bowl instead of eating right from the bag. I'll pour a small bowl. I'll take it with me to where I'm going to sit down. And before I have my first chip, I look at it. I look at the bowl and I say, as soon as I finish this, I'm going to want more, because this is an addiction to high-fat foods. And then I go ahead and have it. So what I've done there is I've introduced barriers. So the location, it's less appealing. The kind that I have is maybe healthier than I would normally have. The portion is smaller. I'm going to savor it more. And if I want more, I'm certainly allowed to have it. But I know what the craving is. It's not, I need the chips. I'm wanting the chips because this is an addiction I have. And so then I'll go ahead and have another one. I couldn't tell you the last time I sat down and had a full bag of chips. So it slows it down. It introduces mindfulness. It introduces awareness to build more of an awareness of what I'm doing, why I'm doing is it the best thing to do? So name the behavior. You can probably break it down. Again, I'm going to encourage you to check out episode 19, Tiny Habits. And if you see value in it, buy the book. It's super cheap. It's not my book, by the way. It's Dr. Fogg, and he's done some research on this. He certainly has led to a lot of lasting behavior change. So I believe I'm en route to lasting behavior change, so if I have some personal stories, I'll certainly share them once I collect enough data. But it might be worth you looking up. And what I like about it is it can help you move through those stages of change, through that cycle. So you come up with a plan. And by the way, all these tiny steps that I suggested just about the overeating thing, well, that is multiple forms of harm reduction that I've just gradually added over time. I didn't do that all in one day. I gradually introduced these speed bumps to slow down the unwanted behavior. And I kept it slow enough that I wouldn't push myself out of my window of tolerance. I wouldn't overwhelm myself. And there were moments that I would push too far and I would have the tantrum and I'd say, no, I need it. It's too hard. Okay, that's all right. I would forgive myself. That's okay. It was a crappy plan. So, kicked it back to contemplation. Again, this goes back to episode 10, Stages of Change. Kicked it back to contemplation. All right, what's the problem? What was the problem with the plan? Make a new plan, move forward on it. And so this is why I love harm reduction. Is right away you can start to get some benefits. You're working with your nervous system. You're getting away from this idea of you as a failed human being, or one that is just doesn't have the willpower. Which, what does that help? It is linked more, I think, to what we understand about biology and how your nervous system actually works, and it can give you a plan that will be more long-lasting in the future. It's even playful. You can have, you can even chuckle at yourself while you take these little steps, like, I can't believe the ridiculous hoops I'm jumping through. But it can become a bit of a game, and over time, over the course of years, and hopefully you've got years, right? You might shock yourself by what you're able to accomplish. And potentially, in the case, some substances you probably don't want to introduce at all. However, I'm still able to enjoy some sugary things. I'm still able to enjoy some fatty things. And that is because I practice this harm reduction strategy so it doesn't get too far. And I know that my mind's going to want it. And so overall, I can have more enjoyment in life. I can eat out with friends and not think too much about the stuff that I'm eating, because I know that with harm reduction, I'm going to balance that out with other behaviors. So that is my summary of harm reduction. I would love your thoughts. I would love if we could get some comments going about what are some tiny steps that you have taken to help reduce whatever behavior it is that you're doing. Maybe some things that haven't worked too well. Certainly welcome you to get in contact with me. You can contact me through my website. And in the meantime, I hope that you will take care of yourselves. I hope that you will be good critical thinkers. I hope that we will see each other in this space again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.